McCarthy Insurance Group, serving the community for over 70 years. For home, farm, motor, life, health and business insurance, log on to mig.ie or free phone 1800 50 11 11. Probably your best call in 2024. Charles McCarthy Insurance is trading as McCarthy Insurance Group, is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland.
Real people, real opinions, real talk radio. The multi-award-winning Niall Boylan Show.
Donald Trump, and as we heard in the news earlier on today, Donald Trump will appear in Washington, actually as we speak, in a court to face his most serious charges yet, according to the news, attempting to overturn the 2020 US presidential election. And the former president is accused of conspiracy to defraud the American government, and he claims officials are trying to damage his 2024 White House campaign. Others will, of course, disagree. I want to go to two of my good friends who are going to come on the air and talk about this. Michael Walsh, who's an author and also former editor. Oh, sorry, I've lost my notes there. Where did they all go from? Oh, yes. And Michael has been on the show many times with us before. And of course, as you know, Michael tends to be a bit on Trump's side, although lately he's been a bit anti-Trump. And Michael Bachner, who is a former US district attorney, and they both join me on the line. Good afternoon, gentlemen. How are you?
Good afternoon. Pleasure to be here.
Okay, Michael Bachner, let me go. You're both called Michael, which makes it a little bit awkward for me tonight, so I'll refer to you both with your surnames as well. Michael Bachner, this is quite serious for Donald Trump, although he may just walk away again because he is like Teflon.
Well, he ultimately could end up walking away, but it's not because he's Teflon. It's because, to the extent that he ends up winning the U.S. election, which you can't rule out, these charges are very likely just simply going to get all thrown out. And that is because, as the president, he will have the right to appoint a new attorney general or a new Department of Justice head who can determine that the charges should be simply dismissed for the federal charges. He's also looking at various state charges, that is, that New York State indictment where he was charged with paying off hush money to the porn star, and potentially also getting indicted in Georgia for a state case. The feds have no authority to throw out state prosecutions. So Donald's going to have some explaining to do eventually in some court.
I mean, the three charges here: conspiracy to defraud the United States by using dishonest fraud, deceit to impair, obstruct and defeat the lawful certification of the President Joe Biden's electoral victory, a conspiracy to corruptly obstruct and impede the January 6, 2021 congressional proceeding where the Electoral College results were certified, and a conspiracy against the right to vote and to have one's vote counted. Michael Walsh, are these really the most serious charges he's had so far? Because I did read one article the other day that suggested that one or two of these could actually be he could get the death penalty. Now, obviously, that's not going to happen. But are they serious, Michael?
Well, I think they're serious in that they're part of a cumulative attempt on the left and the so-called resistance. Remember, right, the day he was inaugurated, the left immediately began an illegal and deceptive campaign to drive him from office, which we saw via the Russian collusion hoax and the fake dossier and all of these things that they cooked up. However, he's been buried like Dr. No at the end of Dr. No, under a mound of bat guano here in terms of the legal challenges. Now, someone made, I'm not a lawyer, obviously, but some lawyers have made the point that these new charges are effectively a Washington Post op-ed or a Gail Collins column in the New York Times of, sheer hysteria and not really amounting to much. I think it was, what's his name? I've forgotten the man's name now on Fox. He comes on Fox quite a bit. Who said that it's basically, if you strip away all of the overheated rhetoric, you have a bunch of haiku. Mm-hmm. But it's a serious charge. Anytime you get charged by the feds, it's a serious charge. They have. But you
told me on the first. But you told me the first time he was charged, going back when we spoke about 6 months ago, that these charges are only lending themselves to making him more popular with the electorate.
Well, it has made him more popular with the electorate, and I think we're heading down a very dangerous path here. I hope that Mr. Bachner agrees with me on this. Indicting the former president and the current leading candidate to replace the current president is just not something that Americans do. And we've crossed this Rubicon, a symbol that's been used many times. But Merrick Garland was kept off the Supreme Court for very good reasons. And everyone can see now what they were. He is a hardcore ideologue who is not concerned with the results of his actions to the public. It's just that does it satisfy his ideological need? And he's a very dangerous man, and this is not going to end well for anybody associated with this case.
I mean, Michael Bachner, I'm looking at Donald Trump and what he put up on Truth Social this evening. He says, I'm going to Washington, D.C. to be arrested for having challenged a corrupt, rigged and stolen election. In other words, he's not backing down. And he also said, it's my great honour because I'm being arrested for you, make America great again. He's not actually going to be arrested tonight, Michael, is he?
Into lemon. Just to address something that Mike Walsh just said, Merrick Garland.
Your phone is breaking up slightly, Michael. Your phone is breaking up slightly.
I'm sorry. Merrick Garland backed away from. Merrick Garland backed away from this investigation. It had nothing to do with it. This was done by an independent counsel by Mr. Smith. For purposes of avoiding any of those improprieties that anyone would say about Merrick. But look, at the end of the day, if you read this indictment, this 45-page indictment, and I was a prosecutor, I'm a defense lawyer now, the allegations in here are not just serious, they're all very well documented. 4 or 5 of the co-conspirators in the case are his former lawyers, including Rudy Giuliani.
But they haven't all been named yet. They haven't. Well, they're cooperating, so they haven't been named yet.
They're not cooperating yet. I think the hope is that they will. They're probably all going to end up getting individually indicted. But one of the things that's interesting in the indictment, Mike Pence, the former vice president, kept contemporaneous notes of his conversations with Trump during the January 6th time period. And according to the indictment, the notes that Pence gave over to the prosecutors have Trump saying to him, "You're not doing enough, basically, for me." And Pence replying, "I'm not allowed to do this. It's not constitutional," to which Trump said, "You're just too honest." So that's the type of remarks that...
But is it not a case that Trump is going to claim that his lawyers told him it was okay to say that to Mike Pence? And in that vein, they would have to prove in court that he knew what he was telling Mike Pence to do was illegal and unconstitutional, where he'll claim it wasn't. I got advice.
That's an excellent point. And the reason that Mr. Smith named his lawyers as conspirators is because if you want to go into court and say that my lawyers, who the government's going to allege were giving him the advice, were his conspirators, that is, they got together to concoct this situation, it's hard to rely on the advice of a lawyer who you knew is your conspirator. That's why they've named them as conspirators. But look, you know what? Donald Trump, as Mr. Walsh said, and as you said, is still leading for the Republicans. But, when Donald Trump was running for office the first time, he made quite a remarkable comment. He said, "You know what? I could shoot someone on Fifth Avenue and they would still vote for me." So for a lot of people, that's kind of what he's done. He shot people on Fifth Avenue, and you know what? People are still voting for him.
I mean, Michael, the very idea that he seems to absorb all of this. I was really talking, myself and producer were talking about this the other day. If you were charged with these kind of charges, which are some of them are quite serious charges when you're talking about state secrets, et cetera, and the previous ones in Miami. I mean, any normal person would be terrified. They would walk away. They say, I'm done with this. I'm, coming up to my 80s here. I'm finished with all of this. I can't take any more of this. This man just seems relentless. He I don't know, is he narcissistic? Is he, what is it about Donald Trump that he just seems to be able to absorb this and just walk away? It doesn't just bother him at all.
Well, according to the articles that are being read, and I know a lot of the lawyers involved representing Trump, he's actually very, very nervous about this. He's spent virtually his entire campaign chest already just paying lawyers. But one thing you have to keep in mind is the only way that Donald Trump doesn't go to jail potentially is to become the president, or for a Republican to become the president, because like I said earlier, they can dismiss these indictments. So he has to go ahead and he has to try and win or make sure another Republican wins. Because otherwise, if a Democrat comes into office, these cases are going to go to trial. and then a jury will have to determine whether or not he's guilty or innocent. So,
and on that note, by the way,
for his life.
On that note, on a jury having to decide, where are they going to get a jury that would give him a fair trial? Because everybody in America has an opinion on him either way.
Well, that's true, but, that's always the system in the United States. But at the end of the day, the jury in Florida, Florida went for Trump, and the argument's going to be in Florida, he's probably going to get a jury that's very pro-Trump. In the second indictment that we're talking about now, the most recent indictment, rather, that's in the D.C., in Washington, D.C., where it's going to be much harder for him to get a jury that's just going to vote to acquit just because he's Donald Trump. And the judge in the Washington, D.C. case, this last indictment, is a Barack Obama appointee. The judge in Florida is a Trump appointee. But in picking the jury, you hope. I got to tell you, I've been practicing law 40 years, my friend, and jurors sometimes individually are kind of silly, but together, this system, it just works. And jurors together as a group are generally speaking very, very smart and usually come to the right result. Not always, but usually come to the right result.
Yeah. I mean, Michael, do you reckon they'll come to the right result this time round? And even if they do come to the wrong result, really what's going to happen here today? Is he going to walk into court? I don't believe nobody's going to put handcuffs on him or take fingerprints. I don't believe that's not going to happen.
No, that's not happening.
No. So, this is just a formality, isn't it? He's going to go in, the judge is going to say, okay, how do you plead? Not guilty. Okay, off you go. Does he get a date today? And is that date, under the Constitution of America, you're entitled to a speedy trial. Is that going to be in the next 6 months? Is he going to be kicked down the road till 2024? When is that going to happen?
First of all, I'd like to know what law school you went to, because you know a lot more than a lot of my friends do. But yes, at the end of the day, you're right. They're going to pick a date. The judge is going to say how much discovery is there. That is, how much information is there for the defense to go through. This case is never going to get tried, in my opinion, before the election in November. It's going to get delayed. And like I said, this could become a non-event depending on what the result of the election is. But yeah, he's going to go in there. He's going to plead not guilty. The judge is going to set a motion schedule, and then she's going to say, "Okay, I'll see you in 3 or 4 months, and we'll see where we are." And that's basically it's going to be a fairly quick process, 10 or 15 or 20 minutes.
Michael Walsh, just in relation to, and I know you kind of turned back on Donald Trump over the last few times I've spoken to you. This is boosting his popularity again. I don't care what anyone says, and you would agree with that. But realistically, the reason his popularity is boosting is because he doesn't have any competition. Realistically, and I think even if you're liberal or Democrat, no one's going to want to vote for Biden anymore. Look, there's a lot of dirty stuff coming out about him too. He's just lucky he happens to be president at the moment. And not only that, I don't want to be ageist, but he's just too old for the gig, isn't he?
Well, to go back to something Mr. Bachner said, yes, Trump made that famous statement about if I could shoot somebody on Fifth Avenue, but apparently Joe Biden's son can leave cocaine in the White House, and nobody seems to be too upset about that on the left, are they? Let's pull back. Let's pull this movie. I'm a screenwriter. Let's pull this movie back and get
in all fairness, I don't think that's ever been proven. But go ahead. I'm sorry to cut you off, Mike, but in all fairness, no one's ever said that was Biden's cocaine.
It's a joke, anyway. Mr. Bachner. It's a joke. This is two Irishmen talking to each other, making jokes. It's what we do. It's the way we handle the crack in Ireland. Now, if you'll give me a minute to finish my sentence.
Go on.
I apologize, and I stand corrected.
Okay, good. Well, one New Yorker to another. Same thing. Okay, so pull back. We are looking at lawfare here. This is lawfare. This is to say that Mr. Smith is independent prosecutor insults the intelligence of everybody listening to this conversation. He is a tool of Merrick Garland. But passing that, go back to the issue here. Do we want to live in a country in which every time the government changes hands, the previous guys get thrown in jail or get indicted or make it impossible for them to run again? I'm taking the long view here. I'm not a lawyer, so I'm not that interested in ham sandwiches. What I am interested in is saving the country from the brink to which it has been pushed by Trump's actions. I don't defend Trump's actions on January 6th. I think it was a mistake, and I think he's paying the price for it now. But we really don't want a system in which the other guys are constantly suing the other guy. America's great defect now, for my friends and relatives back home in Ireland, is it's obsessed with law and lawyers. It is filthy with lawyers. everything you do has a lawyer attached to it.
Even radio shows. Go on, yeah.
Yeah, but they dominate the discussion. So you get to the point where you can't prove that in court. Well, there's a larger court at stake. And I would say this to Mr. Bachner with all respect. There's a larger issue. Not everything is a legal argument. And Trump's behavior was very poor. I think the fact that some of his confidants were saying this is lost, it is just like Trump, which is why I'm not supporting him now. I'm more obviously in the camp of Ron DeSantis, who I think is a much finer man and will make a great president.
He's not making great waves, Michael. In fairness, DeSantis is not making great waves. I had a bit of hope from going back 6 months ago, but his publicity campaign is not working too well for him at the moment.
Well, that's a separate issue, but the election's 16 months away. The point is, do we really, and I just say this to Mr. Bachner again with all due respect, do we want a country in which we are constantly suing each other? Now, maybe the lawyers love that because it's a Full Employment for Lawyers Act, but I don't think the rest of us want that.
Yeah, I don't know. Michael, I understand what Donald Trump has done. And, Trump has made the argument, of course, that, Biden has a garage full of, papers that he shouldn't have taken out of the White House, and he has another office up in Chinatown or wherever it was supposed to be. Some of the charges do seem, pardon the pun, trumped up charges. So, do you really want to live in a country where every time a president exits the building, that they're going to be chasing him to get him back to get him into court again, just because they didn't like him?
The answer is So the answer is the point that Mike Walsh makes is a fine point. No, we don't want to live in a world where everyone in a banana republic where everyone's trying to indict the former guy. But that all being said, the United States of America, it's not that we're flush with lawyers, even though we are. We're a country of laws and not of men. And what distinguishes us from the animals out there is that we do have laws and we do expect everyone, including the President of the United States, to abide by them. And, Richard Nixon almost got indicted, but what happened is the Republicans and the Democrats both said, hey, you broke the law. Either you get out of office or you're going to get indicted. And he left. Donald Trump is a little bit of a different character, and he exercises enormously poor judgment kind of routinely. And, look, Mike Pence took documents from the office, as did Biden. Mike Pence didn't get charged because what did he do when they called him for the documents? He gave them back. Trump didn't. And when you look at the pictures off the cell phones that were taken, not by the FBI, but by Trump's own men, there are secret documents laying out
in the bathroom,
rampant in a shower in Mar-a-Lago. I mean, come on. And at the end of the day,
but does it really matter where they are? I mean, the whole idea of indicting somebody for documents, I would imagine, and I'm sure every American would imagine, is what the purpose of taking the documents were for. I mean, Trump was hardly, trying to swindle the American government or hardly trying to set up a coup or whatever it happens to be against Biden. He wasn't doing anything with these documents. They were sitting on a bathroom floor for reading material while he was having a crap, most likely. I mean, that's the only reason they were there.
But no, do understand, though, that, that Mar-a-Lago is, according to what I've read, and I don't know this, obviously, every foreign government makes efforts to try and get their people into Mar-a-Lago to try and get information, because Donald Trump is, frankly, a notorious talker. And it wouldn't be hard for a Russian agent or Chinese agent or any foreign agent to be walking around there and having seen documents that were laying around. And, what does that tell our friends in other countries?
Yeah, but you'd have to, but as a lawyer, you would.
Who's stealing documents.
Yeah, but as a criminal defense lawyer, and an attorney for litigation, you would understand that you would have to prove that there was some reason for him wanting to do that in the first place, that he intentionally did that.
Actually, you don't. You just have to prove that he took them and retained them.
What, just neglect? Neglect? Was that what you?
No. They would have to show that he intentionally took the documents and retained them. They don't have to show that they were secret. Even they just have to show that they were government documents. Trump confabulates, two different charges. He's not being charged with taking secret documents that are like for purposes of sedition. These are just under the Archives Act. These are government documents, and please understand. They asked him for those documents numerous times. They subpoenaed them. And what did they recently find? That he had two of his guys talking about the boss, according to the testimony in the grand jury, was the boss wants to know if we can delete the videos of us hiding the documents. Is this how?
No, I know. It's not a good look. No, there's nobody who's going to try and defend any of this and say it's a good look. But but sorry, Michael. Yeah, Michael Walsh. Go ahead. You want to say something?
Well, yeah, just going to make a point, which I think Michael Bachner will agree with me on this. There's such a thing as prosecutorial discretion. We don't prosecute every broken law. Harvey Silverglate, who's a great champion of the First Amendment and a lawyer, wrote a book called 3 Felonies a Day, that every American goes through life committing 3 felonies a day if some zealous grand inquisitor wants to get at them. Or to put it in terms that Niall will understand, it's like we're being surveyed by Catholic nuns in 1954 who know every dirty thought that is going through my little 5-year-old head in parochial school. We are now under surveillance, and Mr. Bachner articulated this principle that you could go to jail for this, for that, for the other thing. America didn't used to be run by lawyers. That's the point. It's only since the mid-20th century that the lawyers have taken over this country and really damaged it, I think, in significant ways. For all I know, they think that they're the heroes of the story. But I think that those of us who are civilians see them not as heroes, but as, in large part, villains. They add the costs of everything to everything. You are constantly in jeopardy. You have to hire people to keep them off your back. You have to hire lawyers to fight their lawyers. It really is a kind of nightmarish existence that they ultimately want to foist on the American public. And here we are. They've indicted the former president of the United States. Congratulations. Good job.
Michael Bachner, before we finish up, I saw an article there. Now, I can't find it anymore. I don't know where it went to, but it was written by somebody who looked like they knew what they were talking about. And now I know it's not going to happen, but they said that one of these indictments carries the death penalty. Is that actually true?
No, it isn't. Technically, the sedition, if you're found to have committed the act of sedition, that is actually committing, being a traitor to the United States by passing secrets to a foreign government, and under certain circumstances, yes. But no one's been charged under that. There's no death penalty.
Okay, so it's a gross exaggeration, but I knew it was happening. Anyway.
Charges. Yeah, no, you're talking a 5 or 10 year. Look, at the end of the day, Donald Trump, if he's convicted, is never going to will never see the inside of a jail. No judge is going to put him in jail.
Well, then, going back to what Michael Walsh said about committing 3 felonies a day, well, then, if we believe, and you as an attorney, a former attorney, if you believe, and if, the greatest minds in America, legal minds in America, believe he's never going to spend an hour inside a jail cell, what is the point of all this apart from wasting the American citizens' tax dollar? What's the point? Because
the point is sometimes the prosecution and conviction of someone, even if they don't go to jail, demonstrates that the system works, and that if done appropriately, and that the system doesn't treat different people differently just because of who they are. I can tell you, all straight out, I have represented people who are not Donald Trump, who have committed the same types of offenses, and the ones who get convicted, they go to jail. This is not like we're just picking out these charges for Donald Trump. People get charged with these types of obstruction and lying all the time in the United States. Mm-hmm. And look, and just one quick comment, just to defend, being an attorney, something I love and think is a very significant and important job. Our founding fathers put into the Constitution Fourth Amendment right to search and seizure, the right to counsel, the right to a grand jury, because they recognized that what distinguishes us from, the English was the fact that we treat the laws in a particular fair fashion. So we can, and Mr. Walsh and Mike, we can disagree about whether it's a good idea or a bad idea. And I do understand the idea of why it might not be a great idea to be charging the former president. I respect that opinion. But at the end of the day, look, I only can tell you, I know Mr. Smith. I was a prosecutor in the same office he was in. I don't have any doubt in my mind that he believes he's doing the job he's given to do, and that he's not doing it because he's a Republican or a Democrat.
So you don't believe? So just to clarify, you don't believe it's political interference. You don't believe the political interference. No, just said he was a prosecutor in The Hague, where he prosecuted people in the Serbian-Kosovo war for war crimes. This is a guy who is respected internationally. He has an enormous reputation. He's not just some political hack. Michael, Michael, at the very start, Michael Walsh, just at the very start, going back months and months ago when we spoke first, You talked to me about, Donald Trump's accusations of political interference or electoral interference. At this stage, do you still think it's electoral interference, or do you think, well, look, he had it coming to him?
Well, I think it's both in a way. I mean, I'm not disagreeing with Mr. Bachner on this, but I will point out that Hunter Biden's plea deal, which fell apart, he could have been charged with things that I'm sure, Mr. Bachner, your clients would have gone to jail for illegal gun possession, for throwing it near a school, for all the drug problems that this man had. And he was going to skate because it's not always a fair application. It depends on prosecutorial discretion. So we have this problem in the country that right now the 50% of us who are conservatives see this as an unfair application and a very selective application of justice under the Garland Justice Department. And as to Smith, he prosecuted Bob McDonnell, who was the governor of Virginia, a rising Republican political star, and he ruined that man's career. And the Supreme Court reversed him, I believe, 9-0, and tossed out the convictions that he got. So he's no saint. He doesn't even live in the United States, for crying out loud. This is a very strange and interesting man that there'll be lots more to say about him, I suspect, going forward.
Okay, well, you both have a sincerely different view of who's responsible. Sorry, Michael Bachner, you want to say something just finally?
Sure. Just quickly, the point you make about the McDonnell case is accurate, but just to keep in mind that was 9-0, you're right, and that was both the conservative and liberal branch of the Supreme Court that reversed that conviction.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, listen, guys, it's been wonderful talking to both of you, and hopefully I'll catch up with the two of you again, and we've got an American election on the way. I to be honest with you, I feel so sorry for the American people. I mean, look what you've got. You got a choice of Trump and Biden again. I mean, realistically, unless we're going to go for Robert Kennedy Jr., mind you, he is making waves. If he stops talking about vaccines, I think he may do well, and he may do really well. But, I don't know. Michael Bachner, finally, on a final note, I just throw one more in, okay? You've got a $50 bet. I'm giving it to you free of charge. What do you think's going to happen?
Well, I'm in a rush because I've only committed 2 felonies today, and I got another one to commit.
Come on, hurry up. Get out.
But at the end of the day, I think Donald, you know what? I really don't know. I'm not I prefer DeSantis over Trump because I think DeSantis, as unlikable as he may be, I think is honest. I just don't like Trump because I just don't think he's honest. Okay,
and if it was a DeSantis-Biden race, I think DeSantis would probably win at this stage. I think even for the Democrats, it's anything but Biden.
Yeah, that may be. United States, we don't have enough respect for people who are elderly. I think just because you're 80 doesn't mean you can't.
No, I don't want to come across as ageism either. I don't want to come across, but let's be clear about it. I don't think he's fit for the job. We have to be honest every now and again, don't we?
I hear you. There are arguments to be made that way. I get it. But Trump's not that much younger.
Yeah, but I think he's fitter.
No, he's not. They're both too old to run for president.
Probably, yeah.
Let me just say this one last thing.
Go on, Michael.
A friend of mine in the intelligence community at the beginning of the Trump administration. He was very anti-Trump. This is a spook buddy. I have lots of them. And he said to me in a private message, Donald Trump will die in prison. And that was in 2016 when, the so-called deep state was starting to mobilize against the president. So this is a highly fraught and complex issue. A real statesman would end this, and we would start over again. But as long as these accusations fly and subpoenas fly, we'll never be out of it. I hope that neither Trump nor Biden runs. I hope we have a fair DeSantis, Governor Newsom election, clear ideological choice. Let's see what the American people want to do.
Okay, listen, thank you very much indeed. Thank you, criminal defense and securities litigation attorney Michael Bachner, and also Michael Walsh, author and former associate editor of Time magazine. Thank you both for coming on the air tonight.
Real people, real opinions, real talk radio. The multi-award winning Niall Boylan Show.